In this session, we're going to look at the one leader model, the true biblical picture of spiritual leadership, which comes from Jesus Christ. It's found in Matthew 23:10. It says, "Do not be called leaders, for there is one leader, Jesus Christ." He is the leader in and through us. So we need to adopt a new paradigm of leadership. And we see this in the book of Acts. Paul is leading and he's working with the people, but he himself says 8 times in the book of Acts, and here are 3 different verses that he says. In Acts 15:4, when they arrived at Jerusalem, they were received by the church and the apostles and the elders, and they reported all that God had done with them. Acts 19:11, God was performing extraordinary miracles by the hands of Paul. And Acts 21:19, and after he had greeted them, he began to relate one by one the things which God had done among the Gentiles through his ministry. So right there we see Paul's leadership came from the Lord. God working through him. God doing the ministry through Paul's hands. And so in this one leader model, we're going to give you the framework and the new principles of leadership. But let me just start with just a quick story. I worked for a large international marketplace ministry, helped oversee the ministry in the United States. And I remember coming to a meeting one time, and there was the top leader, and we had all of the other directors around the table. And he walks into the room and says, "We need to do things bigger, better, and faster. We're not doing enough for the Lord. And if you guys don't get your act together, you're going to be gone. We need to do things for the Lord." Well, that was just a real picture of man trying to do something for the Lord, man-centric. And that's oftentimes where our leadership comes from, is that we think that our skills, our charisma, our strength comes from us, and then the Lord multiplies it. That's a false way of leadership. So let us briefly examine 3 keys of why this paradigm should change. First of all, we need to start with the question of why. Why is this paradigm shift in leadership important? Man and his leadership power and wisdom are very limited, but God's power is unlimited. See, if we do it in our strength, we're going to run out of steam, but God never runs out of steam. Number 2, the outcome of our efforts are going to be, again, limited. But God can do supernatural things beyond what we could ask or think. Number 3, the one leader model values what God values. And that's people and his kingdom. And number 4, we hear from the Lord rather than telling God what we're going to do and have him rubber stamp our plans. So there's a shift. Number 2, the shift in our leadership paradigm really looks at 3 different arenas: power, mission, and heart. In terms of power, we need to move from achieve to receive. It's not me trying to work and do things for the Lord, but it's that I receive leadership from him. The power comes from him. We said previously in 2 Corinthians 12:9 that my grace is sufficient, for power is perfected in weakness. The mission, we need to move from for to from. We don't do things for the Lord. The Lord doesn't need my grand plans, my big dreams, and my grand effort. We do it from the Lord. That is the branch abiding in the vine. It's the vine producing the fruit. We work from him. And then finally, in the area of heart, we need to move from like to life. If we focus on trying to be like Jesus in our leadership, we'll reduce it to a list of performance-based acceptance rules. Do this, don't do that, work hard. But it's the life of Christ in us. Philippians 1:21 says, "For me to live is Christ, to die is gain." It's his life working in me. So we need to shift these paradigms in the area of power and mission and heart. And then finally, we need a new framework. And that's what the whole leadership, one leader model is about. There's 7 principles of leadership. And it really comes in 3 different arenas. There's the spiritual, there's the relational, and then there's the missional. Worldview, values, behavior. 3 concentric circles. It's know, be, and do. We don't change from the outside in, we change from the inside out. And so this model starts with the spiritual as the foundation. And there's 2 principles that we will look at. Number 1, there is one leader and you are not it. Number 2, leadership is released through brokenness and surrender. These form the spiritual foundation of leadership. Upon that foundation, there's 3 principles that are relational in nature. The 3rd principle, leadership is formed by following first. See, we follow Him as leaders. We develop an intimate relationship with Him. We grow deep with Him first. The 4th principle, leadership is modeled by serving as second. So we follow and then we serve. We serve other people out of character humility, out of relationships. Number 5, leadership is expanded by influencing to the 3rd and to the 4th generation. Influence comes from trust and excellence and skills. These are the 3 relational principles of the one leader model. And then finally, there's 2 missional principles. Leadership is leveraged through teamwork. Every leader needs a team. Every team needs a leader. And as we work together, God can do more through all of us. And number 7, leadership focuses on God's kingdom and leaving a legacy. Leadership has a clear focus on God's agenda, not man's agenda. So let me just give you a quick story. I was down in Guatemala recently, and I was sharing on the one leader model. And there was a pastor that came up to me afterwards. Very successful pastor, both in the Hispanic world, but also here in the United States. He taught for one of the largest Christian leadership groups here in the United States. And he came to me almost in tears. He said, "Bruce, I've never heard this before. I've missed it. Will you help me? Will you mentor me? Will you guide me? I can't believe that I have tried to do leadership in my strength for all these years and did not understand that Christ is the one leader." To see Carlos today, he just beams. He was telling me just here recently how he's teaching this principle through his leadership in his church. And it's transforming his church. So, the one leader model, 7 key principles. We're going to go deeper into each one of those principles in the sessions ahead.